Innovate, accelerate, move technology forward. The startup revolution is now.
Good afternoon and welcome to this segment of Philippine Startup Week 2022, How to Create an Entrepreneur Ecosystem by Paying It Forward. So this sounds like an incredibly lofty goal, creating an ecosystem by paying it forward. Well, my hope is during this little talk, I'm going to demonstrate how that actually works. And I think ground zero, if you like, for this concept is in a place far away from here called Silicon Valley. Because what we will try to demonstrate is that Silicon Valley actually grew up on the back of this concept of paying it forward. So our story begins in the 1950s, early 50s, with a man named William Shockley. So William Shockley was a physicist working at Bell Labs in the US, and he won a Nobel Prize for his work in semiconductors, in particular in the transistor area of semiconductors. And what he did was he decided that he would commercialize this idea, not in Bell Labs, but all the way across the country to be on the West Coast so he could be near his ailing mother. And his mother happened to live in a place called Mountain View, California, which at that time in the early 50s was a farming town. So as you can see here, population 6,500. And so you might say, well, that was a crazy move. Why would anyone who's trying to build a business move to this little farming town in California, which, by the way, as you know, is now the epicenter of a giant tech industry. But back then, it was a farming town. I say it's a crazy idea because what do you need to start any business, right? You need three things. You need capital, you need talent, and you need a market to sell to. And at that time in 1950, there were no VCs, right? There was no capital. Most of the capital was all the way on the East Coast. Talent, well, again, most of the talent was coming out of the East Coast, in tech, and partly out of the Midwest. I believe Stanford at that time was minting less than 20 PhDs, right? So it wasn't the hotbed of tech talent that it is today. Then, in terms of market, the semiconductor market was largely concentrated very far away from Mountain View, California. So you had the East Coast, you had around the Chicago area, and partly near Texas. So you would say, dumb idea. Why move all the way to Mountain View to commercialize this great idea about transistors and semiconductors? Well, since he won a Nobel Prize, he was able to raise a little bit of money, and he was able to hire a group of young engineers, right? So you have here the core of the young engineering team. So he was able to hire 8 young engineers. Now, there was a problem. And the problem was William Shockley was a little bit difficult to work for, let's just say. He was a little bit like Alan Turing from the UK. If you've ever seen that movie about the Enigma machine, right? He was a bit of a paranoid schizophrenic. This was a boss who used to make his young engineers take lie detector tests, as an example. So he was so difficult to work for that one fine day, these 8 engineers just decided to leave and start their own company. So they started a company called Fairchild Semiconductor, which is still alive today. They managed to get some capital from a financier from the East Coast named Mr. Fairchild, hence the name, and they were off to the races. And these guys were so good at what they did that within less than a decade, they became the number 2 semiconductor company in the world. These were, after all, the guys who invented the integrated chip, which is now a sort of core idea for the whole semiconductor industry. Now they worked at this, for several years, and once this had become super successful, they then became massively wealthy individuals, right? All of their options vested, their net worths were astronomical, they were newly minted millionaires. But they didn't stop at that, right? They didn't decide, I'm going to cash out and I'm going to sit on the beach and read trashy novels for the rest of my life. In fact, what happens next is what many business historians say is the single biggest event in business history in the last 100 years, if not in the history of business history, period. What these individuals started to do was they started building new companies. They started investing in new companies. They started mentoring each other's companies. To give you an example, yeah, two companies that are very well known today were founded by three of the original eight in the Fairchild founding team. So Robert Noyce and Gordon Moore, after whom Moore's Law is named, started a company called Intel, which now powers the majority of computers around the world. Eugene Kleiner started what is now probably the most preeminent venture capital company in the world, Kleiner Perkins, Caulfield and Byers, also known just as Kleiner Perkins. Then you had some of the one downs who, throughout the early 70s, started doing the same thing. The head of marketing, a guy named Mike Markula, wrote the first check, $250,000, to a partnership called Apple, right? And so he turned the partnership into a company. He became the first CEO, and the rest is history. And then you have another executive named Don Valentine, who started another now very famous and very prolific venture capital company called Sequoia. So these gentlemen were so influential in that part of the US that within the first 12 years after they left Fairchild, there were 31 spin-off companies, right, that were somehow linked back to these individuals, whether it was because they started them or they mentored them or they invested in them. And the influence and the impact of these people from Fairchild is so pronounced and so far reaching that if you look at Silicon Valley today, right, and you look at the over 130 companies that are publicly listed and based in the Valley, about 70% of them somehow trace their roots back to the Fairchild senior team. Uh, these companies represent more than $2 trillion of revenue a year. Phenomenal. Now, these individuals came to be known as the Fairchild Mafia, right? And this is mafia not in the negative sense, but in the very positive sense, because these were the folks that everyone went to for advice, right? These were the godfathers of that growing tech industry in California. And this phenomenon reverberates up to the present, right? A more recent mafia, which you might be familiar with, is the PayPal mafia. Because when PayPal sold to eBay years ago for about, I believe it was almost $3 billion, just like with Fairchild, we had a number of newly minted millionaires. And like the Fairchild Mafia, these gentlemen didn't stop, to count their money. They went off and they started building new companies. They started investing in other companies. If you look at this slide, you see some famous companies like Tesla, like YouTube, LinkedIn. That's Reid Hoffman, who actually sits on the board of Endeavor as well, and the folks who started Yelp and Yammer. Now, this is not unique to Silicon Valley. So when we look at the work Endeavor is doing here in the Philippines, and I guess I need to have a little bit of a commercial break and explain what Endeavor is. Endeavor is a nonprofit, and the theory of change, if you like, to use a nonprofit term, the theory of change of Endeavor is that if you want to create an economic multiplier effect in a country, if you want to grow an ecosystem of entrepreneurs, what you need to do is you need to identify and help scale up a special kind of entrepreneur that we call a high impact entrepreneur. Now, what characterizes a high impact entrepreneur? I would say it's three things. The first is these are entrepreneurs with the best and most transformative ideas. Second is they're high impact when they have the skills to turn it into a large and successful company. And finally, and I think this is the most special thing about being a high impact entrepreneur, they go on to pay it forward, right? They do exactly what the Fairchild Mafia did, which is they don't stop to count their success. They reinvest their success in the next generation of entrepreneurs. How? By mentoring others, by investing in others, by sharing their network with others. So, just to give you an example of some of the entrepreneurs based in the Philippines who are doing this, we have here, three of our entrepreneurs. You have here Nix Noliado, the founder of Surpass, and who now runs a venture builder called Eden Ventures. And as you can see in his map, it's color coded to indicate companies that he's mentored, companies that he's invested in, other companies that he started, and companies that his former employees have started as well. To his right, you have Steve Benitez, the founder of Bose Coffee, who's doing the same thing. And you have there at the bottom left, Richard Eldridge, the founder of Lendo. What we see in the data across the world, right? And Endeavor is now in over 40 countries, is that Endeavor entrepreneurs who do have, if you like, a social contract with us that they will pay it forward. When we look at the data, we see that Endeavor entrepreneurs are 8 times more likely to mentor other entrepreneurs, and they're 4 times more likely to invest in other entrepreneurs. Now, this is what it looks like at the individual level. What does this look like when you zoom out to look at the entire ecosystem? And this is what I'm going to show you is hot off the press, right? And very excited to show you this ecosystem map or ecosystem influence map, which is something that our researchers in our New York office has made. And it looks like this, right? When you zoom out, you see the entire ecosystem. There's almost 200 companies that represent the startup ecosystem in the Philippines. And the rings here are rings of time. So the oldest companies are in the middle rings, and the newest companies are out at the edges. What do you see here? Well, you see a number of companies that are larger than normal, right? We see here, for instance, Eden Ventures, which is the company of Nix. We see here Kumu. We see here Great Deals. We see here Grosari. We see here Lendo. And what this really shows you is that there are a few entrepreneurs who are paying it forward and who are creating a multiplier effect. We actually have an entire report which we've written around this ecosystem, and it is available on our website. So if you go to endeavor.org.ph, you should be able to find this ecosystem map. One of the important things we like to encourage our entrepreneurs to think and to be, right, is to believe that your success is not simply a function of your market cap, a function of your market share, a function of the cash you have in the bank. In fact, we say that success is really a function of the positive impact you have in an ecosystem. And to end this talk, I just want to end with a little quote, right, which I think summarizes the way we'd like to encourage entrepreneurs to think about what success means. And it's a quote from Winston Churchill that goes like this: "We make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give." So that's it. That's our little talk on how paying it forward leads to a thriving entrepreneur ecosystem. Again, our report is available on our website, endeavor.org.ph. At this point, I would like to introduce you to three Endeavor entrepreneurs who are making their mark by paying it forward. First up, we have Roland Ros, the founder of Kumu, which is the
Hi.
leading ice cream platform in the Philippines. We have E.R. Rolyan, who is the founder of Growsari, an e-commerce platform focused on the sari-sari segment. And last but not least, we have Steve C., the founder of Great Deals, the leading e-commerce enabler. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
Hey,
Okay,
Manny.
so I'm gonna ask you four questions if you don't mind, and think of this as a informal conversation, right? If your spirit moves you, say something. We're not necessarily gonna do this in order, right? So the first question, right, is gonna mirror what you saw with the ecosystem map. I just want to ask you guys, in your journey, as you were sort of going your way towards greatness, right, and scale, who were the folks that were important in your success, i.e., who mentored you, who invested in you, who shared their network with you, who helped you to find talent, right? So that's question number one. Does anyone want to tackle that? No order here. Whoever is moved, go for it.
Moved. Wow, that's a great word. Yeah, I just our first mentor, growing up in LA, met Mr. Dado Banatao. He was our first advisor, helping us and coaching us through, before even thinking about funding. He had us really thinking about four key essential areas before we did funding, which was: one was what was our technological advantage, two, our operating plan, our three, our team, and four, the timing of the business. And then from there, as we were getting established and preparing for our move to Manila, our first investor in the Philippines, Liza Golkongwei from Summit Media, was our first investor and really laid the foundation, which what was very important to us. And then from an operational execution perspective beyond funding, I would say, Ron Hose from Coins, through the help of enablers like Kubo, and also folks like Franco Verona and Jesse Maxwell, and everyone part of the initial grab team like Brian Koo, were very, very helpful for us in getting our start.
And that was super important, I would imagine, because you're a Philam, right? And you just showed up one day in the Philippines without a deep network. Is that right?
Yeah, we didn't know anyone. I think Dado was able to open that particular door, and then Liza really, really opened it for us. And then when we, ironically, through a Grab ride, met the folks through Foxmont Capital and learning their story about helping build Grab, I think a lot of the operators from Grab were very helpful for us.
Hmm. Cool. Who would like to go next?
I can go next. I guess for us, in the very beginning, it was kind of Paul Santos of Wavemaker who kind of really forced us to make sure that the product market fit was something that is kind of right and center. And one of our very early investors, of course, Nix Noledo, as well as Teru, from kind of BNex Capital. And of
Oh, and
course,
by the way, Taro is a board member in Endeavor Japan. By the
yes,
way.
yes, and of course, I guess people would think that Grosari became part of the Endeavor network just last year, but in reality, we were already getting mentorship from Endeavor way back in 2016, 2017, right? Even before, like, so Manny was able to give me many valuable lessons in our kind of early stages. So it's kind of, at that time, the ecosystem wasn't as, I guess, rich as what it was today. But generally, if you ask a question, people are kind of very kind enough to answer. And of course, 2018 was when the Gokongwei family came in, which really kind of gave us not only mentorship but also infrastructure to kind of grow. So yeah.
Cool. Okay, last but not
Yeah.
least, Mr. C.
Yeah. So I'll be sharing a little bit of a different, because I two of my mentors are technically my disciples. So Peter Tanchi of CCF and Ramon Manzana of Bank of Makati. So they were mentoring me on how to build my business. So it's quite a different journey. They're not really part of the startup ecosystem,
Hmm.
but timeless principles that have been shared to me that I'm able to adapt into our new digital economy. And I would really be thankful to my first angel investor, Michael Ang, who, when I pitched to him, it's just an Excel file, and he invested in our company. And I think that was the start of my journey as a startup. And then got my seed investor from Naisayao, one of our customer, the distributor of Barbie dolls here in the Philippines. So it's quite a different set of people. And then my Series A was Navigar. They are Endeavor mentors, and they have been very helpful, especially in giving us processes on our financial side. So those are the key people that have really helped in terms of growing great deals.
You might say that it's very different, but actually, what is common to all three journeys is that there were people that were out there that were willing to invest the time to help you, right? And so Endeavor actually wrote an article back in 2015, and it appeared on TechCrunch. The title, I believe, is "Mentors: The Secret Weapon of Entrepreneurs," right?
Mm.
And what we did, right? So we have a think tank in New York called Endeavor Insight. So what the Endeavor Insight guys did was they canvassed the entire New York tech ecosystem, and they identified those who were super successful, right? And success defined as, whether it was the amount of money raised, the exit that they had, or the revenue that they were able to achieve. And what they discovered was that you were three times more likely to be super successful if you had a great mentor, right? And so I think what really permeates all of your stories is that you had people in your lives that were willing to spend the time to mentor you. Okay, so my second question is this, right? When we talk about this idea of paying it forward to create a multiplier effect and turbocharging an ecosystem, guys, is this just an idealistic motherhood statement? Is this just Endeavor trying to justify itself by saying, hey, this is what everyone should be doing? What do you
I
observe?
Maybe I
Is this
Oh,
is
go
this,
ahead, Steve. Go ahead.
is
Go ahead.
this a thing? Is this really a thing?
I think my first, this is quite interesting because regarding ecosystem, regarding it paying forward, for me, I first really experienced it with Alibaba. They have a program that they were supporting Southeast Asian countries and African countries, bringing them to their ecosystem, sharing them the secret sauce, engaging us to all of their VPs and CEOs, so that we'll understand what the digital economy really looks like. And really, it really impacted me when I went to Alibaba and saw how they've been developing the ecosystem, and that has instilled a fire in me to pay it forward, to also learn how to build this ecosystem. So it was for me a life-changing experience in terms of opening my eyes on how to be able to build our ecosystem.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
oh, go ahead, Yar. Go ahead.
No, no. I was just gonna say that when your tank is full, right? There's an overflow, and then you kind of tend
Mm.
to give it to other people. And to your first question, Manny, these people that have helped us, they really went over and beyond. And the impact to us was really accelerated learning, right? We matured as entrepreneurs much faster. Like we were able to get decades of wisdom in like a 2 hour meeting or a 45-minute session. So our tanks are super full.
Mhm.
And then you see younger entrepreneurs or newer entrepreneurs, and it's like kind of you know um watching a kind of a younger child or a baby walk towards potential danger, right? It
Yeah.
compels you to um at least give them some of what you've learned so that they also don't kind of make the same mistakes. So it's very healthy to have a mentor because it always gives you a feeling of having your tank full,
Yeah.
which again kind of gives you the drive to just share it also to other people.
Awesome.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, Manny. Like, during my earliest stages in entrepreneurship, I was a partner of an internet marketing company or software company in Silicon Valley, and saw exactly what you were saying earlier, the power of the network effect. My two advisors, Luke and Kenny, were actually co-founders of PayPal with Elon
Yeah.
and Peter. They had actually went to school together at Stanford, and there was this one moment I remembered early in my entrepreneur journey. This guy Mike Arrington, he's the founder of TechCrunch. He hosted a dinner, and it was a long table.
Hmm.
And when I saw this table, Reed Hoffman was there, Mark Zuckerberg, the TechCrunch
Wow.
people, and a lot of the people who worked for PayPal, who started these companies, and the way they were all interacting with each other, helping each other, mentoring each other. I was able to see the power of a Silicon Valley in real life. Disclaimer: I was not invited to that dinner. I crashed it. Was just just fanboying in the background, and those types of things, and we snuck in because our two advisors were the co-founders of PayPal, and seeing a lot of that element starting to turn a corner in Manila has been very inspiring. I
Yeah.
think that it's very well known amongst us internally that the team that Kumu would not be where it's at without the help and generosity of the people who have spent time with us, and it's only right for us to be able to spend time with others now. So yeah.
You know what fascinates me, right? Is when I look at the tech industry in the U.S. Or let's call it the Silicon Valley culture, and you compare it with two other big industries in the U.S. Right? The ethos couldn't be more different, right? So I'm comparing it to the banking industry, comparing it to Hollywood, right? I don't know if you know this, but when you go and talk to people in these industries and you want to do something really big and serious, generally what comes next is they'll say, "Oh, can you sign an NDA before we talk about this?" It's a complete opposite when you go into let's say a Pete's Coffee, right, in Silicon Valley, and you see somebody on a laptop and you ask questions, right? They're extremely generous, extremely open. And some people, and I was asking why is that the case? And some people said, well, it's because this used to be farming town and people were very mellow and very chill. I'm not really sure what the answer is, but I observed that that's a huge difference, right, between tech and banking and Hollywood. Are you guys ready for question number three?
Sure.
So when it comes to role models, right? Pay it forward role models. Who are the people that come to mind for you? Right? Who are the ones that have impressed you with their generosity, both in terms of time, as well as network and money?
Um, I
Anywhere in
think
the
there's
world.
several layers to it, right? I'm not trying to butter up these two gentlemen in the panel, but we have a small group together. People who are kind of in the same journey, and people within that group. Do you see a genuine interest to just share and collaborate, like sharing kind of different challenges? It's a different perspective because we're going through it together,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and so there's a dimension of there's relevance in what we're going through, right? We may not have the answers, but we're kind of going through it together. So that's one. So definitely Roland, Steve, Greg, all of these guys.
Yeah.
And then also sometimes I also feel guilty because we're all busy, but I see them really reaching out, right, to other people, which is really fantastic. So that's super
Yeah.
inspiring. Then you see people like Ron Host who have made significant success, right, but continues to just genuinely reach out and how can I help, and he replies super fast when you
Yeah.
need something from him, right? So that obviously is
Ron has been like a key resource person for the emerging crypto market in Poland because the my counterpart in Poland, I guess, discovered Ron at an ISP, and since that time, right, he's asked Ron to help, and Ron has been extremely accommodating.
Yep. Yeah. So, and then of course, you look to some of your more seasoned mentors, like for example, Lance, Ruby, and Liza, the Go Home family, are investors. they again, you admire them from a different vantage point, right? For someone
Yeah.
who is already there but has maintained humility and kind of just very good natured human being. So that kind of tells you that hopefully if you get there, you maintain a certain set of values as
Yeah.
well. So I kind of look at it from those dimensions. But it's good that in the Philippines you have kind of these pockets of inspiration that you can kind of draw from.
Yeah. Steve, Roland, what about your experience? Who were your role models?
No,
So for
I do agree. I think ER has around on the dot. And this group, I've just again so inspired by everyone. ER actually, technically, ER and your family has been very helpful for Kumu over the next couple of quarters. Steve has been like a huge inspiration. He actually mentioned somebody too. Peter Tanchi, but actually his son, Peter Tanchi Jr. has been very, very accommodating with his time. Manny, I don't. My gosh, every time I hit you up, you're always so generous with your time. I think Endeavor, in a lot of ways, has really connected us with so many people all around the
Our
country.
pleasure, Roland. It's our pleasure. It's our
No,
job.
it's a huge thing. I think when it comes to those different layers that ER is talking about, uh, there's like operating type of folks. I think from Foxmont, again, Franco's experience at Grab, but also Jesse Maxwell and with what he's been able to do with on the Magsaysay shipping business has been super helpful. More recently, with a lot of intention, Paulo Campos. Uh, uh, with Kaya Founders, formerly of Zalora, has just been extremely accommodating, and I've been very grateful for his time. And again, Brian Koo, Martin Koo, everyone with the last name Koo seems to be very helpful for Kumu. But yeah,
Awesome. Steve?
alam mo, magsasalita na sana ako, sabihin ko sana, pero ang dami nang sinabing pangalan. Eh, hello?
Yep, I can hear you.
Am
yeah, we
I,
can hear
yeah.
you. We can hear
So,
you.
I think, Manny, you're really can you, am I cutting off?
Yeah, we could
Hello?
hear your
Yeah.
audio.
Can hear you, yeah.
I was reading ko lang. Yeah. So, yeah. Okay. So, when thinking of an inspiration, of course, Roland ER, but also Sir Manny, you are an inspiration. I think yung paying it forward na thing would really be, it encompasses you, and it encourages me, inspires me, na sabi ko, when I become more elderly, I would like to follow your footsteps.
Well,
Wow, parang may tama yun, ah. As I
No, I
said,
mean,
we're
you're a
into
good
it.
role model. What from my heart, you're really a good role model. Now you don't really just value, we want all of us would, as a team, as a group, would really would like to make an impact to our generations,
Yeah,
and we have this heart of serving, and seeing people like Sir Manny and our disciples, mentors, really encourages to continue on what they have started, also to the younger generations, to
that's right.
inspire people to be able to uh, have their mind break this glass ceiling, to be able to have these limitless possibilities. Yeah. So I think those are the things that really resonate to me in terms of role models. And I'm thankful that Roland ER, we were given this opportunity to really show our life, show our faith, show how we work on, Sir Manny, you'll be amazed how so many values are aligned with most of us here. That's
Yeah.
why it's a
yeah,
you
I
know
agree.
exciting times for the startup industry.
That's right. And I must say, well, first of all, thank you very much for your very complimentary comments. Like I said, we love doing this. I tell people, I said, I can't believe for a living we get to help people, right? It's so it's It's super engaging for me. But I like to say that what we're trying to do here at Endeavor is, we're trying to lead a cultural movement, right? And what I mean by that is we're trying to change the culture of capitalism, right? In some sense, going back to an earlier comment, right, that our success is not simply about our ROI or our market cap, right? It's really about the impact, the positive impact we're making beyond ourselves. Okay, last question for the day, guys. And this is very casual, right? What are some of the things you're trying to do to multiply your impact today, right? What are some of the things you're trying to do to multiply your impact, right? We've seen that bubble map, as we like to call it, right? And all of you are in there, right? And these bubbles are getting bigger. But what's behind those growing bubbles of impact? Who'd like to go first?
Well, one of the biggest elephants in the room right now, right, is the new financial realities of certain, especially the
Yep.
current market. And I truly believe that one of the biggest ways that I could contribute to the ecosystem is to make sure that Kumu survives, and so that if the company actually survives, then we show the rest of the world that companies could actually thrive in the Philippine total addressable market.
Yep.
I think that last year with all the hyper growth and those types of things, to be able to, I'm starting to read more articles now. I just read one recently where you're shifting from unicorn to cockroach strategy, and it's all about surviving those types of things. And what's great about that is, so many times I think the Philippines could actually have a branding problem of, is this a place where you'd like to invest? But I'm so proud of the fact when I look at our other contemporaries here, we have some of the largest, most established, and most prestigious international investors on our cap tables collectively. And there's a responsibility there that as a good steward of your business, and showing that leaders can provide shareholder value and have a beneficial impact to the nation at the same time, is a recipe for more growth and more opportunities. And I think that it's great to do all that. And to get there, you just have to make sure the company survives first. And things like strong unit economics and profitability and those types of things. And the reason why I wanted to open up with that is because I don't want people getting caught up in the romanticism of being a startup founder, or the talk of being a unicorn and all that type of stuff. I think it's really about providing value and problems and solving problems for our society. Because if we do that first, to your point, Manny, I think that sure, we're all here with the vision to build a multi-billion-dollar business, but it's not that being the core value. It's the fact that the implication that if you build $1 billion business in the Philippines, that means you're providing thousands of jobs, you're having a beneficial impact on millions of people. And if we do it the right way, I would rather focus on my core values and building strong character, and having that leadership, and building credibility for our nation, than some of the other kind of hype stuff.
Awesome.
It's really a good point, Roland, because first of all, I agree with you. Our job is to survive this this tech winter, right?
Yes.
And because there is a bit mismatch between how big Philippines is as a market, and the fact that you can count all startups that have been through Series B and up, with your two hands, right? So a part of me believes that while all of this is happening in the macro environment, I understand how valid it is. Philippines, it's way too early, right? We're not trying to create solutions. It's not like 10 platforms are trying to address the same solution, right? There's enough problems out there to be solved. And there's not enough entrepreneurs out there to go after all of them. So it's important that people look at Philippines, that this is the best time to actually invest in the Philippines, right? Because the competition is not as heated, and and supposedly the bearers, I don't like that name, right? The front runners of the startup ecosystem are very responsible entrepreneurs in terms of, you have here Roland trying to say, don't get caught up in the unicorn game. But what he's saying is true, right? So I think when people come to me also for advice, I tend to be super critical about why do you want to do a startup, right? Is it
Mm.
are you just trying to go for Series A, or you have to protect. That's our way of protecting the ecosystem, is to uphold the quality of entrepreneurs that
Mhm.
gets into this, right? Because if Philippines burns at this level, it would be such a shame,
Yeah.
right? In one way, we're happy that the three of us were able to represent the Philippine startups, but at the same time, it's sad that there's not a lot of us um, doing it,
We're
right?
getting there.
So
We're getting there.
yeah. So selectively, I'm sure these guys are doing it too. If I like something, I try and put a small amount of money just to show my support, invest, give some sort of mentorship, even just informally. But I try to also choose the ones that I feel the values are aligned in terms of the impact that I think this ecosystem is still yet to make in the country.
Cool. And Steve, I'll let you have the last word. I know you've been busy multiplying your influence.
So, of course, I think what's important to see in the future is the digitalization of the Philippines in the next 4 or 5 years. That would truly accelerate a lot of disruptions will happen. And I think being part of the startup ecosystem, you like to it, the only way for the ecosystem to grow is to build more leaders to be able to pass it on. That's why we mentor, that's why we disciple people, we invest a little bit of not only time but also resources to other key potential leaders in the startup ecosystem. And for me, that's how there's only 24 hours of our time. So it's very important for me also to who to choose when we mentor so that we'll have a greater impact in the future. So for us, it's really uplifting lives, enabling dreams
Mm.
so that we'll be able to see a digitalized Philippines.
Well said. Well said. Okay. And with that, I do believe our hour is up. I'd like to thank our guest today, Roland Ros of Kumu, Rollan of Grosari, Steve C. of Great Deals. Thank you so much for being, as we say in Endeavor, for being 3M, magaling, matino, and mapagbigay. And for those of you in the audience who'd like to learn more about Roland, and Steve, Endeavor does have a brand new podcast called Hype Stories, a show about high impact Pinoy entrepreneurs. And that's Pinoy with an asterisk because it can be anyone, regardless of their passport, as long as they're committed to the Philippines. So you can find us on YouTube and Spotify, right? Hype Stories, HIPE Stories. And with that, gentlemen, thank you very much and more power to all of you.
Thanks,
Thank
Manny.
you.
God bless,
Thanks,
guys.
everyone. Thanks for having me.